This is the Central Scrutinizer, and welcome to the reaction log. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hey, guess what? Frank Zappa dropped a new interview, and by that, I mean somebody clipped an old interview of Frank Zappa and then clickbaited it with what appears to be a ChatGPT-generated clickbait title. The Frank Zappa interview that still feels dangerous today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 1984, by the way. Literally 1984. Am I right, everybody? I don't know much about Frank Zappa. I don't know much about anything that I show here on the show. That's sort of the beauty of it. We're all learning together. I know the average age of my viewer is 50, so you're all very familiar with Frank Zappa. You're all musicians too, so you all love him, I'm sure. But I'm gonna watch this interview, having never watched a Frank Zappa interview before. I have listened to some Frank Zappa. I listened to the entirety of Joe's Garage one night. I enjoyed the themes of music being regulated and controlled by the government. I actually think that that's a good thing. I think that music is way too accessible nowadays, alright? It should only be pursued by the aristocrats of society. That's a real Sorehand's opinion. You might be wondering, does this YouTube channel make me enough money to be an aristocrat? Yes. Yes, it does. In my own mind, it does. Yeah, is there anything else we should talk about before jumping into this? Maybe I can introduce myself now. I am a classical guitarist here on YouTube. And what does it mean to be a classical guitarist? Ooh, I'll tell you what it means. I've gotten this one Frank Zappa quote dropped in my comment section quite a bit. Because as you guys know, I talk a lot. I am a classical guitarist. I'm not known for being one, though. I'm known for saying that I'm one. Am I known for playing the classical guitar? Not so much. Let me see if I can find this. Finally. That was really hard to find, actually. Shut up and play your guitar. That's something that Zappa said, apparently. I forget my point with that because it took so long for me to find even just one mention of that. Did he actually say that? Let me see. Oh, it's an album. Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I take offense to this personally. I feel like he's trying to censor me now, if you know what I'm saying. After the release of Joe's Garage, Frank Zappa set up his home studio, the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen. Is that the name of his studio? It's built in 1979. It's a good name for a studio, I like it. Zappa built the studio in his 6,700 square foot home. Whoa, what? Dude, what was he so up in arms about? It sounds like society treated him good, dude. Dude, you should study classical music with that much money. Dang, son. Whoa, dude, he had a UMRK mobile. Dude, a remote recording bus purchased? What? Dude. Oh my god, that's awesome. Dude, sounds like Zappa did pretty well for himself, huh? Well, anyways, we're gonna watch an interview with Frank Zappa now, and we're gonna see what's so dangerous about it. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we?
Getting back to you now, and the classical side to your career, it's something that's interested me greatly.
Ooh, the classical side of your career. Hey, I want to know about that.
You've teamed up with Pierre Boulez.
It's pronounced Boulez.
Boulez.
I asked him.
I love that energy. It's that snobbish classical energy. I can already tell he has a classical background. Look at that.
About 3 years ago, I sent some scores of some large orchestral pieces to him to ask if he would conduct them, and he said that he couldn't because he, for one reason or another, couldn't be done, but he invited me to write something.
I wonder what those scores looked like. Zappa, I don't know about your classical origins at all, but what you've sent me is unconductible. It can't be done.
Do you feel intimidated by working with people that do have such a long classical pedigree behind them?
No. Why should I?
I don't know. I sometimes think that classical musicians maybe frown on pop and rock and maybe look down on it somewhat.
Oh, they actually do, yes, but it's totally...
Yeah, I didn't realize this interview would be so relevant to exactly what I do here. Classical musicians have been known to frown upon things that aren't classical. Probably even more so, they're known to frown on each other the most. They probably get the worst of it, honestly.
They have a blind spot that, well, you see, being on the outside of a lot of this stuff, I can remind them of little details like the classical music that everybody reveres so much today, the music from the 16, 17, 1800s.
God, if only that's how it was today.
Right? It's the really good stuff. Do you know how many people were writing music during those years? Lots. Most of them you've never heard of. So, guess who survives? The ones who had hits. Not because they were the best, because they were kissing ass in the court, they made a deal with the church, or they had a personal relationship with a dictator. Most of them, nobody ever will know. They'll never hear their music. So it's the one who had the hits that stand out. That means, in a few hundred years from now, guess who the classical composers of this period will be? Michael Jackson, Barry Manilow, that's the heritage that is going to be left.
So that's sort of an interesting point. We're talking about like fame and legacy now. I'm interested to hear what this blind spot he's talking about, because I thought it would be like the usual comment, like, oh, they can't improvise or whatever.
Arguably could have survived from the late 1700s is a certain person called Francesco Zappa.
He's one of the washouts from that period. He was a contemporary of Mozart. He was a cello player. He lived in Milan. Nobody knows when he was born or when he died. Grove's Dictionary of Music and Musicians, it says merely that he flourished between the years 1766 to 1788. He gave music lessons to the Duke of York. He lived in England for a while, and he wrote mostly string trios. And I loaded this stuff into a computer in my studio and had the computer perform the music. And we were the first people in 200 years to hear one of the forgotten guys of that period.
Okay, what does this have to do with snobby classical musicians, though? I don't think there's any classical musician that isn't aware of the blind spot that they have, that what they're doing is, like, important to no one. Like, we're the ones who see the attendance of the concerts. Like, I see who shows up to these things. And it's not the masses, I'll tell you that. It's the old people, it's the retired people, and it's, like, maybe 10 of them out of 100 seats. So yeah, I guess I'm confused, like, what the blind spot is. I feel like I need to rewatch this and really, like, listen or something. You think they don't know that? I feel like I know that. So I guess what I'm gathering right now, this interview is about an album. Wait, hold on. Let me actually read the description of this so I know what's happening. I'm lost, but I feel like I'm piecing it together. So he's discussing his growing involvement in the world of contemporary classical music. Yeah, so he said that he collaborated with this guy that who said he couldn't conduct his music or something. The conversation takes a deeper turn as Zappa reflects on why some composers are remembered while countless others are forgotten. Wow, so deep, right? And they're talking about Francisco Zappa, who was a little-known 18th century cellist and composer, I guess. That's really funny that it's Francisco Zappa. That's totally why he picked the name, I guess. And he used modern technology to allow him to hear the music for the first time in centuries. And what that means is that all of this beautifully composed music that was meant for the classical stage, this classical art music, that's probably pretty good. He said he's a contemporary of Mozart. He ran it through Logic Pro or like MuseScore or whatever they had back in the day. I know it wasn't that, but they just programmed it into some MIDI and heard it MIDI style for the first time. What a terrible way to hear something like that for the first time. Just actually the notes. Hey, and you know what? When it comes to musicians like Frank Zappa, I feel like that might be a blind spot because you miss out on all the nuance that should be in that music because you're just running it through a machine. So sanitized when you do that, right? So sanitized. It's like you're censoring the music. Alright, I'm sorry. Okay, and he's using Francisco Zappa's music, I think probably for an album. Yeah, so there's an album called Francisco Zappa, released in 1984. So that's what this is. Boom! I figured it out. Alright, I think I know what we're watching now. Usually, I have no idea what we're watching. I'm just kind of reacting to stuff. Firstly, with his millions of dollars he seems to have at this time, I'm critical they didn't just hire musicians to, like, play it and record it and listen to it. And he ran it through, like, MIDI. When was MIDI invented? It was definitely invented by now. See, you guys are going to be critical of me for not knowing what's going on, but, like, that's part of this channel. You want me to do research? Screw you. Dang, dude, it was developed in 1981. What? Did pianos exist in the 1600s? I didn't ask that. Is MIDI relevant today? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be relevant. Run your classical music through that, why don't you, huh? I wonder how Frank Zappa actually heard this music then. Did he have MIDI, like, right when it came out? I imagine he would. He adopted it really quickly, if so. I'm just, like, totally speculating. I have no idea what I'm saying. So it sounds like Frank Zappa just stole the work of Francisco Zappa and just released an album about it. What do you think of that, people? I say that classical musicians everywhere just play the same music over and over and record the same music over and over and then call it a day. So you know what? I kind of get it.
Do you ever get tired of being treated as something of a rock and roll oddball or eccentric?
Well, it's always boring, but I mean, I would rather be treated as an eccentric than have to do the things that people do in order to be treated as one of the real guys. You know, that's stupid. I'm not going to grow purple hair or wear clothes with a diagonal zipper on it.
You know, I'm a little out of touch with what he's even talking about right now, but I can kind of imagine, and that's really funny. That's sort of like when I get asked, do you ever get tired of being the classical guitar oddball? And I say, well, maybe so, but for me to be taken seriously, I'd have to actually practice screw that, right?
It must be very difficult for somebody like you to actually be able to survive and create some sort of living within that.
Why, it's next to him.
Is he, like, struggling right now? Like, I swear to God, we saw this Wikipedia page where he's, like, freaking killing it. Alright, I mean, just the AI overview. He earned millions from his prolific music career. He had a whole entire $1 million, which, like, for inflation. He died in 93, apparently. Was Frank Zappa unfaithful? Yes, Frank Zappa was unfaithful in his relationships. Well, there you go. His first marriage, dude, we're just slandering the Zapster right now. Did he name one of his kids Diva? Dude, holy crap. Alright, so this is actually a little fun fact about Zappa. Amit, Diva, Dweezil, and Moon were his children. I hate when celebrities name their kids things that aren't actually names. Amit, we're chilling with that. That's an actual name. Diva actually has classical origins. It is the, like, main star of an opera. We'll define it here. A famous female opera singer. It's used as, like, an insult now. Like, oh, you're being such a diva. It's an odd choice. I'll give it that. Dweezil is downright insane. Dweezil? That's not a real name, right? Yeah, Dweezil Zappa comes up. Sorry, Dweezil, I know you're still alive, probably. I'm not trying to make fun of your name, or your father, but it's not a name. Dweezil is a name that your child should choose for themselves. It sounds like a portmanteau of a D, of a word that starts with a D and weasel. Like, is that what it is? Maybe diesel and weasel? Terrible choice. Really makes me question Frank Zappa just as a person there. And then finally, Moon, which again is not a name. It's a stage name. It's a great stage name, Moon. But my God, for a human being to be named Moon, how do you grow up in normal life with a name like Moon or Dweezil? Like, all of a sudden, your whole life is a performance if you're named that. Moon Zappa? That's rough. So I guess not knowing anything about Frank Zappa whatsoever, and I might eat my words later, because maybe he was like the man, the bomb.com, but it sounds like he's saying how hard it is to make a living in his, like, fancy shirt and stuff, and it says they had $1 million net worth when he was done, which I know, like, to all you 50-year-olds watching me, like, I'm sure that you're, like, in a STEM field and guitar is just a hobby, and now you're watching me to sort of live out your musical life that you missed out on, because of course anybody who doesn't pursue music always wish they do, because that's just how it works. Sounds like he killed it, and he made a lot of very questionable decisions. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright.
Create some sort of living within that.
Why, it's next to impossible.
Hey, it's next to impossible, and I did the next to impossible because I'm a freaking god. I'm not a fan of his attitude right now, and it just seems like a little, like, snooty. Even for a non-classical musician, it seems quite snooty. You know, being on the outside, I can see the blind spot of all these classical musicians, and what they don't understand is that everyone they're playing, they were all kiss-ups, and that's the only reason why their music exists still. Bach wasn't actually a prolific genius who composed thousands of amazing works. He's just a big old kiss-up. That's why we still know him today. He might as well be an American pop star from the 1980s who's just forgotten unless he gets revived on TikTok at some point. No, I totally disagree with that. And I'm just bringing up one example, like J.S. Bach. He was a special anomaly that came from a family of geniuses, and we know tons of other Bachs too that have also composed works and also other pieces of musical literature that are, like, just revered and studied still. I don't know. And also, yes, it is true that lots of people were composing music back then, but just like today, whenever there's an art form that a lot of people are doing, there is cream of the crop. Like, most stuff that people write is crap. That's such a funny thing that you hear, like, especially when you're studying music theory. An easy assumption to make is that if you're, like, following the rules, like the voice leading, I'm saying rules, they're more like tendencies that just we're noticing from the music that we're studying. Just because you follow tendencies of a music that you're studying, that is no guarantee that your music will actually sound good or inspired. Just like how I can speak to you with, like, perfect grammar, which I don't, I'm sure, I know. But by no means is any given sentence that technically is correct, profound, or good. That's just not how it works. So yeah, the classical composers, they had to be prolific and they had to kiss up, obviously. But they were masters of the language that they spoke. And many of their works were profound, and there's a reason why we study it, and there's a reason why we don't study other stuff as much. And there are even composers that feel like less inspired. Like, for example, Sibelius. I don't really feel that inspired when I listen to Sibelius. I feel like it's a lot of just like nonsense. Other examples more close to home, like in the guitar world, Luigi Legnani. He's a famous composer in the classical canon. Anytime I listen to his music, I feel like very uninspired. Especially his caprices. They're just like so boring, especially when you compare them to Soar or Giuliani. Luigi's still canon though, and he follows all the same rules, but somehow his music, at least when I listen to it, I am not inspired, and I don't feel like there's nearly as much like soul in it. I don't mean to be calling the kettle black or whatever the expression is, but I just feel like there's a lot of pretentious language here that's just a little annoying. And yeah, I know my whole show is based on that, but whatever, alright? Like, I feel like he really feels like he knows better than these people that he works with, which is just weird, I guess. And I feel like non-classical people would latch on to everything he's saying right now, too. Because he's saying obvious stuff about legacy that, like, everybody knows, like, of course. And also he's trash-talking classical musicians saying that they're pretentious, which is true, but I feel like he's also not even going into why they're pretentious. He's just talking about the legacy of the composers that they play and how, like, in the grand scheme, how meaningless it is, right?
Formed a lot of your own companies in the process because you've wanted to control your own product, which you've implied. So why have you sold out and signed to a big company like EMI?
That's a real question for Zappa. Why did you sell out, bro?
Well, first of all, you'd better examine your semantics by examining the term selling out.
Woo! Why don't you examine your vertical zipper on your shirt, bro? Transfer the purple dye from your shirt to your hair while you're at it.
The deals that I've had outside the U.S. have been as an artist on another company, with Warner Brothers, then with CBS, and now with EMI. As you know, I have lawsuits against both Warner Brothers and CBS because of what they did to me on those foreign royalties. And those suits will be coming to trial sometime this year. Now it's EMI's turn, and I'm hoping that I don't have to go chasing after them with a stick. But
wow, so that was a dangerous interview, huh? That was so dangerous. Did that deliver in the danger? I don't know. We talked about classical musicians and how most of them aren't remembered, and that's true for everyone. Most people won't be remembered. We talked about how Frank Zappa sold out to a company to sell his records better. He's a successful musician, and he was at this time, obviously. He's being interviewed and, like, making deals with huge companies. Like, most of us aren't doing that. And I feel like he's trying to separate himself with, like, cynicism. These other uber popular people that you're talking about, they're doing the exact same thing that you're doing. Maybe their music is more compromised, but honestly, what kind of music do you think, like, Barry Manilow and Michael Jackson want to be making? Especially in the case of, like, Michael Jackson, because I don't know anything about Barry Manilow. He's been making Motown style hits his whole life. How experimental do you think he even wants to go? I think his identity is pretty wrapped up in being the king of pop, so I don't know. But it's cool that you don't have to sacrifice your musical integrity. But I just get this air of, like, everyone else is, though, and I'm not, so, you know, screw them, right? I don't know. That was the first Frank Zappa interview I watched. Like I said, it left a slightly bad taste in my mouth. Overall, he seems like an interesting, cool guy. He does seem quite out of touch with his success, and maybe that's like part of the satire of Frank Zappa, because surely I don't understand Frank Zappa. But that's the feeling I'm left with. And hey, the beauty of YouTube videos is that you can always make another one. So if you have another interview you'd like for me to watch, maybe albums you'd like me to listen to, which, like, I don't know. I sat through Joe's Garage. It is a bit of a slog. I'm going to be honest with you. It's long. There's a lot of waiting around. It's a lot of that kind of jamming where not a whole lot's happening. You need a long attention span for that album. It's not jam-packed with fun. I'll put it that way. But yeah, I don't know. Nobody asked for this one. I just wanted to do it because of the title of it. It's so intriguing. But we watched Frank Zappa. He's now part of the Sore Hands universe. What do you guys think of that? Okay. I think I've done enough talking today. I want to get back to practicing or something. I've already done an hour and a half today, and it's only 8:45 at the end of making this video. I woke up early. Practicing classical guitar gets me out of bed every morning super early. I didn't even sleep that much. I only slept like 6 hours, but I had to wake up. You know, Bach was calling. I'll make a practice log for the next video probably, and I'll show you some of that practice. But until then, let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Of course, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. Hey, my recital class, if you're a classical musician and you'd like to play some repertoire that you're working on just to see if you can, link in the description for my recital class. And of course, if you'd like some corporate Sore Hands merch, go ahead and pick yourself up a Sore Hands work shirt. Show everyone your loyalty to the Sore Hands International brand by picking up your very own corporate work shirt. You do have to buy the work shirt. The Sore Hands company does not provide you with a work shirt. You have to buy it yourself. All right, well, I'll see you in the next one.